Welcome in, everybody, to the Creative Crypto Podcast, where we provide immersive, essential, and evergreen strategies for the novice cryptocurrency investor. How you doing? I'm one half of your hosts, Broke Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as well as always, Crypto Ewok. We have got a good show for everybody tonight. There is a lot of interesting things happening in a small sector of crypto. You can see the thumbnail, obviously, on the video. We're going to talk a lot of Hex tonight, but also the traditional crypto market as well. But lots of drama the last couple of days. We are excited to get to it. But before we do that, let's bring in my trusty co-host and friend, Crypto Ewok. Ewok, how are you feeling? We're in the midst of the holidays. Christmas, obviously, a few days away. We're on the verge of 2023. Thank God. I think everybody wants 2022 to kind of just disappear into the ether. But how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling much better than I was last week. I got rid of that head cold and almost back to normal now. Let's hopefully markets get back to normal too. But yeah, let's get this year over with and move on to the next one.
Yes, I think we all have had, especially in crypto, enough of 2022. Did I just 2022. Sorry, I thought I double said that there. But it's been an interesting couple of years, obviously, but 2022 has been not the best in terms of crypto. It's been the entirety basically of this bear market. So before we really get deep into it, I am Broke Boy Crypto. You can find me on YouTube and on Twitter at Broke BOI Crypto. The YouTube channel is dedicated to kind of living a minimalist financial and interpersonal lifestyle to help you attain wealth through crypto. That's kind of the two things that I focus on. So you can find me there. Ewok, how about yourself? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm at Crypto Ewok on Twitter and YouTube. This is our weekly stream every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's where I'm at.
Yep, same bat time, same bat channel every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States of America. But yes, we got a lot to get to tonight. Again, as the thumbnail says, if you are just listening, the thumbnail is basically stating that do we have a mass hexodus happening right now? It kind of seems a little bit that way if you would look at Twitter the last couple of days, but we are going to get to it. We have so many angles of this to get into, and we will get there. But before we do get into that specifically, I am happy that we don't really have a lot of Fed or government stuff to talk about here, because that stuff definitely gets old. And in the midst of the holidays, there's not going to be too much as far as all of that goes. But just checking in with the markets, we always like to lead off with just seeing where BTC and ETH at least are trading. BTC did dip down just a little wee bit here earlier, while most of the crypto market awaits what they all think will be the final leg down. Some of them have been calling for it since July and are sitting there waiting. If they are patient enough, it may come very soon. But yeah, Bitcoin at 16.5K right now. ETH dips below 1,200, but not by much. Still holding out pretty steady there at 1192. But like I said, everybody feels like the bottom is going to drop out. Hex trading, that's the big story, of course, below 2 cents now. At this very moment, we are at 0.0193, but we have seen Hex get as low as 0.017 or so a couple of times here. So
pretty nice buy. Nice buy spot.
Spoiler alert for the rest of the episode. Yes, I think we agree that that's a pretty nice buy. But before we even do get into the Hex angle of that, Ewok, we kind of approach this at the beginning of every one of these episodes just to get a feel for it. But I'm assuming you're beating the same drum as we are just about 3 days left here at the end of 2022. Are the Bitcoin lows in? If so, why? If not, why? And when? And what will it look like if we do get new lows?
You said Bitcoin?
Yes. Yeah.
I do not think the Bitcoin lows are in. I still think we have another event. I still think something's going to happen, whether it be Grayscale having to liquidate, whether it be Gemini's or Genesis possibly having to liquidate some of their trust to make people whole again on their investments. Something is going to happen. I still feel around that $10,000 to $12,000 range is going to be our low. We haven't gotten there quite yet. We're getting close. but it hasn't happened yet. In my opinion, I don't think we've quite bottomed out. So
Mhm.
we are getting close though.
I do agree with you, and yeah, it's exactly what we have been saying the last couple of weeks. I sent you a tweet earlier from Bob Lucas, who we reference semi frequently on this stream. But yeah, he tweeted today, literally verbatim, thinking that something dealing with Genesis having issues here at the start of the new year will probably be the big catalyst for this last leg down, marking the low of this 4 year cycle and this bear market. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have kind of been preparing, but people that are really paying attention to everything, that could be the final catalyst. It certainly would ring true again for some of the other events that have happened here in 2022 that a not real necessarily crypto entity has issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Something
go
that doesn't
figure.
really exactly.
Another centralized party getting in the mix that has kind of screwed things up for everybody else. Who would have thought, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we
Who
kind of realized that I don't think the Mount Gox coins are going to be released until later this summer. We
mhm,
probably will see a bottom by then, but that could also, give us another double bottom, so to speak, if something like that were to happen. Hopefully, they release them in increments where it's not all at once, not hitting the market.
mhm,
There's also a rumor of Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy selling. Now, I heard that would be OTC, so it should not affect the price. From what I kind of gathered and what I saw, it was more of a tax harvesting kind of
mhm.
issue, where they're probably selling at these lower prices so they can write off some losses, buy back eventually once it goes up. Then they'll have to pay more capital gains on it. But in the meantime, I think they would rather have the tax write offs. So I
Makes
don't
sense.
think that's going to affect the price much. But sorry, I kind of cut you off there, what you were saying. But
No, I want to get a feel kind of time wise because you and many people, myself included, for some time now have agreed that this lower teens is likely where we think the bottom of this bear market could go. Time wise, though, January is also a month after. At first, we were thinking November would be new lows, and we looked to have been right about that. January, we both have been agreeing that we think could be the final ultimate low, and I would be pretty willing to stick with that, and I guess we'd be moderately surprised if it doesn't happen in the month of January at this point.
yeah,
But time wise, what are you thinking here? And we are going to link what's happening with Hex to this in a moment, because if you checked us out last week on last week's stream, we talked about whether or not Hex does front run the rest of the crypto market. The short answer was pretty much yes. And, there's a lot of information I think to be gleaned from that. We've seen that before. Hex it's almost like not entirely, but the way that stocks and bonds have a relationship to each other where, one goes up, one goes down, or one stays flat or whatever, you do see them kind of trading differently, Hex and the rest of the crypto market. But where time wise do you think we could see this final low, and when do you feel it gets started? I not that we're working with a lot, but I could really see like mid to late January here, um,
well,
being the
yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, we're still on target for that January 17th or 18th date.
Mhm.
I think that we had kind of figured out on the average of the time before the next Bitcoin halving, as far as a overall average of all the different market cycles, and where they fall. I think it was January 18th is where it actually came
Yeah.
to play. So that could really play out. But, again, we don't have a crystal ball. We'll have to kind of get there and see where we're at or kind of leading up to it. But I still think it could be in that range, in that area, as far
Yeah,
as yeah.
I think so too. I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm really feeling like middle to late January, maybe even like very late January. I could see it happening because we have to remember to be patient with these things. And I could name the accounts, but I mean I'm seeing it constantly. There's a couple more day trader type people on Twitter that have gigantic followings that have been literally saying the same exact thing since like July about where we're headed, and you haven't seen nothing yet, and prepare and everything. And it's just like, Yeah, I mean, I guess even a broken clock is right twice a day. But it's
Uh,
kind of, and I agree with them. That's the thing. But it's just like when you're saying it since July, it just kind of gets a little bit tired, I guess. But
well, we're getting close though. I mean,
yeah,
we're getting there. You know, we're
yeah,
what? It's the 28th now, so you know,
yep,
we're literally 21 days away from that date. So we'll have to
yep.
wait and see. And you know, the other thing is that, you know, the overall macro of what's going on in the markets too. What will the Fed do? What will happen at the next meeting? I believe that falls on the 15th. When does that?
I'll look it up. But yeah, I think it's mid-January.
I think it's
Yeah.
right around there as well. So, you know, that could play a role if they
Hmm.
start to ease up a little bit. Maybe we get 25 points. Maybe we get 50 again. Another 50 could be considered bullish though, because they've definitely pulled back a little bit and, you know, taking that step down approach as to not raising them as drastically. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think it
Actually,
all kind of times in.
it's actually at the end of January, and interestingly enough, it's January 31st and February 1st when the next meeting takes place. So
Okay.
we already did get, as mentioned a couple minutes ago, I don't think we'll have much Fed stuff to talk about. And we really won't, but not until more towards the end of January. But yeah, that you know, we talked a couple of weeks ago how Jerome Powell and the Fed pretty much said that it looks like we are going to be rate hiking for longer, but for
Yeah.
less in volume. So we're a month away. I do still think we'll probably get like 50 basis points, and they continue to do that for a while. Just to kind of pre-forecast the 2023 Fed meetings here to get a little bit of an idea how that may affect the market and how it's going to look. So the 31st of January and February 1st is the first one. Then we've got almost a 2-month wait. So that's kind of interesting. March 21st and 22nd. Then about 6 weeks, you've got May 2nd and 3rd, and then mid-June again. So I'm not going to go throughout the whole year, but yeah, there's about 8 meetings for the year. And yeah, this first quarter, we talked about it last week. This first quarter of 2023 is going to be super interesting. I mean, you and I both, as we've been saying here, agree that by the end of January, we're thinking we're going to see new lows. So that already is going to make the beginning of the year interesting. But on the bright side, we've already endured 14 months of downside here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there comes a time, regardless of how bearish everybody is and the world is ending, where the downside risk amongst some of your favorite assets, not all of them certainly, just starts to totally outweigh or underweigh, I should say, the potential reward. It just becomes, what do I drop? 50 more percent? Well, I'm already down how many X's or whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, um,
Well, blood in the
yeah.
streets, you know, that's when you got to buy. That's when you make the best gains out of what's happening and take advantage of, you know, that's when the smart money is buying when everybody else is very fearful.
Yes, and we are going to attack that subject in grave detail tonight. So we're going to get there even more later. But you brought this up, Ewok, and I want to ask you because I know you saw a couple of documents and had some more information on it than I did. You sent it to me a couple of weeks ago, I think. But let's go back to the Mount Gox thing real quick. So, that's been a narrative since summer. Like there's been people talking about wait till the Mount Gox coins. Oh, it's going to be September. If you remember that, it was always like
Yeah.
September is when that's going to happen. So now who knows how reliable any of this stuff really is. But yeah, it sounds like from, you'll have to correct me, but it sounded like somebody who was going to be receiving their Mount Gox coins back, that they were looking at a couple of options, which included like payments starting in June or July, or a lump sum, or delaying it for a little bit higher of a payment. What are the details and how do you think that could be rolled out?
That's pretty much it. There were a couple different options. One was to take it all in one lump sum. One was to take payments and break it down a little bit. And the other one was to delay it. I think you actually got like 1% more if you pushed it back until a little bit later. I'm not sure where
Yeah.
it's coming from or why, because we know we don't make yield on Bitcoins. It's not like they can lock it up. Hopefully not, because we see what's happening when you do lock it up and try to earn interest on your Bitcoin. Hasn't gone too well for those type of folks, and any of the entities that are paying the yield. I wouldn't trust it. So those are the options, though. There aren't many different choices, so we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, it's going to be mid to late summer. Again, we've said it before. The Chinese are always late with that type of thing, and it was a
Yeah.
Chinese exchange. So we'll see. We could anticipate even the end of the year until things actually start to unravel and people get their coins. So just have to kind of wait and see. I'm not one of them. I was
Yeah.
not lucky enough to be invested back then.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just going by what I'm reading on some other people that were in that early and the documents that they showed.
Yeah, it's been a saga that we're just waiting for an end to. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's funny how that narrative was such a strong one for most of 2022, and then basically a whole bunch of other stuff that people didn't, entirely predict, or what the real catalysts kind of ended up being. So, yeah, so that's kind of what we've seen in 2022. So we are at least at the end of that. I'm not a fan of wishing time away necessarily, but it has been a difficult year, I think, for most people. We can all say that. So um, let's transition over to where we're at with Hex right now, and we're getting to this even a little bit earlier in the podcast because it is really there's a lot of drama from some people on Twitter. If you weren't even on Twitter, you wouldn't even know it. So there's
Right.
always that, which is beautiful. Um, and we're going to kind of attack that whole angle in general, whether you're invested in Hex, Bitcoin, whatever, any crypto, or heck, any investment really, but just kind of seeing the market psychology through the prism of some kind of reactionary social media outlet like Twitter versus just you maybe looking at the price and experiencing your own life and maybe not even really looking at the price that much because in markets, we haven't always had Twitter, as much as that may seem unreal. But I mean, there was a day where, you maybe just checked a ticker a couple of times a day or something like that, or never even looked at it. And now we've got people live reacting and flipping out about things that the creator are doing and things like that. So it is a whole new world. But with Hex right now, when I first wrote these notes, I put about to break 2 cents. Since yesterday, we've been primarily below 2 cents with Hex. As
Just
I said
under. Yeah.
as I said at the intro there, I think it got as low as about 0.017 that I saw. So we have been there. So first off, I'll ask you this before we get into the even greater discussion at Ewok. We both, a couple of months ago, even, we thought that about that like 2.8 to 3 cent area was the bottom. And I'll eat crow on that. I mean, it seemed to make sense to me. It was kind of slowly crawling back up after that. It had crept around 3 cents for such a long time. It just really seemed like it to me. And I think what may be happening here is that we obviously hadn't seen the Hex bottom. I thought if that was the Hex bottom back at that time, and I guess that would have been maybe, I don't know, October or something like that, that we would maybe be seeing like Bitcoins in November. And, we got a little bit of that taste, but now this is like the second big wave down. And,
Yep.
We didn't know if we get here. So do you think what we have seen over this last day, and it's literally been like 24 hours, so it's hard to say, but do you think that has been the bottom for Hex, or do we get to a penny and a half or lower? What do you think about the price?
Well, I was wrong too. I thought we could have seen the bottom with all the support we had. You have to remember, go to the Twitter thing though. As good as it is for building communities and doing things like that together with an entire community, it's also quite toxic sometimes.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of remember that. There are people on Twitter that are literally on there just to FUD you out of your bags. They want a lower
Yeah.
price. They want to get in at a lower price. They will say and do just about anything to stir it up, to cause trouble, to create FUD. And that's kind of primarily what they're there for. They create these accounts, get a lot of followers by bots or whatever it may be, so they look kind of influential or whatever, and then just start fudding everything they can.
Mhm.
There are still Bitcoin maxis out there like Mike Alford, who are they're so happy that Hex is under 2 cents.
Yeah, he's got a hard on about it.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, didn't your company just file bankruptcy as Bitcoin miners? Like, you should probably worry about your own house, you know?
He's also been just constantly obsessing over this Binance stuff, which, maybe there'll
Yeah.
be some truth to some things he's been saying. But yeah,
Yeah,
anyway.
maybe he's grasping at straws anyway. But back to my point was there's a lot of Bitcoin maxis that have always been threatened by Hex because of what it is, because they don't like Richard, because Richard changed camps. He's no longer in their corner anymore. So, now they want to FUD it and they don't want it to survive because they are threatened by it. So you're gonna see a lot of that. Eric Wall's another one. He's kind of maintained that I'm just here to be that person that
Right.
creates the chaos, creates the FUD, whatever. Richard told me to a long time ago in that very first interview where he said it's literally the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. Richard told him to be that personality, and he's kind of stuck with it at that point.
Yeah.
So, or he maintains that anyway. We'll see. Um, but now there are a lot of people that are the drama is causing some extra FUD from people that I didn't think it would.
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn. At one point, if they're that paper handed, if they're Johnny's here, he said I heard chaos.
There you go.
So on one hand, I'm kind of sad that there is drama. On the other hand, I'm like, well, get him out. Get him out now. We know what we have. We know what Hex is. We know the contract works. It doesn't change a goddamn thing about anything.
Mhm.
If they're that paper-handed and get them out, I would rather see it continue to go down and have them sell, so they can't whenever it goes up. I would rather see it in much more strong hands, divided up amongst a bigger crowd, than having a bunch of it into certain people's hands that probably don't deserve it, or they're afraid to hang on. So yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm kind of torn. I don't like to see the community fighting. I don't like to see that infighting. I do try and stay away from as much of it as possible. I'll read certain people, I'll follow their stuff and like their stuff and listen, but for the most part, if I see drama, I just kind of turn the other way and scroll right past it. I don't like to involve myself with it. But yeah, I mean, back up the truck at this point. Get more. I want people that believe in it to be getting more right now. I don't want the people that are afraid, because eventually they're going to sell at some point. Everyone's going to sell. I don't mean it that way.
No,
Everybody
I get it.
should
Yeah.
take profits, but I want diamond-handed people getting in now, because they will appreciate it that much more. So that's my
Y-
take.
Yeah. Well, as far as like the drama thing too, and I'm totally with you. I don't even I don't even know the last time I commented to a Twitter thread that was anything other than me just joking around or something like that. But that said, I do find it fascinating though. Actually, that's a word you used, I think, with me at a DM earlier when we were talking about this. Like, I find everyone's choice of behavior like fascinating. It is an interesting psychological study. Now, there's some stuff that might just be drama and trolling and stuff like that Pulse X account that I think you've blocked. That is clearly just some, I don't know who it is, but
I
he's
don't either.
not following, he or she or they is not following anybody and has like 6,500 followers and now is literally just crapping on Richard.
Yeah,
Like it's not even you go back and it's like in September they were actually giving like pulse chain updates they probably weren't even privy to, and now it's like Richard's dumping on you and all this stuff. It's literally what you just explained.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's strange. I just don't
It
understand
is
the motive.
strange. Well, I do, because they either A, want it to fail, or B, they want to buy in lower. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and there's plenty of people that are strong-handed that are ready to buy in and buy more. So
That's
I
the thing.
agree.
It's kind of like, this is the question you have to ask yourself. And this is why people, to get to people who are actually seriously investing in crypto right now. And obviously, none of this, just like any channel, is not financial advice. There's a conversation. Like, you have a premise and a reason for investing in whatever it is you are before you even look at price. Now, obviously, you're going to buy at certain levels, and you're not going to want to buy something at a top or something like that. But your premise for having something in your portfolio is something you've already should have worked out a long time ago. When you have it written down or journaled somewhere where you're only going to allocate 10, 15, 20% to it, or you're going to put your whole bag in it, your life savings or whatever your decision is, that decision should have already been made in earnest. And if this level of drop is shaking you out, what you need to do is examine your entire plan, because something is wrong with it. You are either over leveraged, just too emotional of a person. There's a lot of things you have to check off and figure out, why are you capitulating at the worst possible time? I guess that's kind of a chicken and egg thing, because it's like the worst possible time is when you capitulate at the worst possible time. But some of this stuff we're seeing about, and I don't even know, I don't know the validity of some of these accounts maybe as much as you do, but like some of the stuff we're seeing about, like, Richard's lost it. He's not even like tweeting, which he is right now. He just was a couple minutes ago. Maybe we can pull that up, but they're saying like Richard's lost it and everything. So it seems as if through a little bit of a veil, Richard is calling out some of these, whatever you even want to call them, projects or whatever, that have already launched, like on Pulse, basically. Okay.
Right.
Why is that a surprise to anybody? I mean, he's never done it directly. We were talking about this before we came on the air. He's never done it so far directly with those. And I imagine anybody that's involved with Hex or Pulse knows what I'm talking about. But the ones that have already been, created for Pulse, like, why would you think that he'd be an advocate for these? This is what he does. Like, he always is calling things out like that. Do you think, are people so shocked that he's doing it because it is Pulse related, which I think that's actually a stretch? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, I think Richard has always said, I'm only going to promote my stuff. I don't know enough
Yeah.
about them. I don't have the time to look into them or read the code to see if they're what they say they are, nor does he know the person behind it, if they're going to rug pull or do whatever they may do.
Right.
So he's better off not even talking about it. I think he doesn't want to mention them by name, and he never really will. Occasionally, I do remember one point where he did mention Hedron.
Mm.
At some point, I think they kind of garnered some of his trust a little bit with what they had built and what they were giving away. And I know the OA claimed Hedron as well. So he
I didn't
obviously,
know that.
that entity obviously trusted the contract enough to interact with it. Pretty sure they did. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they claimed a bunch of Hedron. So, but again, his whole premise has always been, if I don't make it, I'm not going to promote it. And nor should he.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons why. And also he doesn't like to talk about them. He won't even usually say their name, because if it does turn out to be a scam and he named the scam, then he feels liable, where that economic energy could have gone into his project. Instead, he mentioned a name, people went to that name and bought it, and then if something bad happens, he feels partially responsible. So
Right.
it's understandable why he doesn't. I don't know why people get so butthurt that he won't talk about projects, or even block people for that matter, that's all they talk about. He doesn't want it on his feed. He doesn't want the people that he follows to see it, because when he does follow other people, he does follow Hexicans. If they're tweeting about that stuff or retweeting, it does kind of show up in his circle or in his feed. So, I don't understand why people get so butthurt about promoting other things that aren't his. It doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. They can, they deserve it, essentially.
Yeah. I totally agree. And like I said, the fascinating thing to me is that people are acting surprised that he's revealing himself to be this way at this point. I mean, this
Well,
is what he's always done. It's very consistent with
yeah.
exactly what he's always done. Maybe it's a little bit extra now and directly kind of aimed at some of these pulse things whenever Hex has reached its new bear market lows. So that's why people are kind of capitulating on it now. But to me, I'm just like, dude, this is exactly what he always does,
Yeah.
you know?
There's nothing different. Nothing different about now and then. People just are, are maybe a little bit more emotional right now that it's a bear market. They're a little more on edge because the pulse chain hasn't happened yet. So
Mhm.
what? It hasn't happened yet. It's not ready. But for those of you who think that it's not even going to launch, he's just going to run off with the money. He's spending the money. This other stuff, like it's all fault. It's all narrative, like that. It's just totally made up. You can look at those addresses and still see the money sitting there.
Yeah.
He's not out spending it. Uh, we know they're developing it. Shit. I don't know what more to tell you. If
Mhm.
you want to believe that fan fiction, go ahead. But at this point, Richard's reputation is on the line. And if Pulse Chain doesn't launch, it would be catastrophic to what he has already created and what he's doing. There's a documentary coming out. Dude's building a museum. It doesn't make sense that he would go through all of this stuff and then not release a product that people have sacrificed for, obviously without expectation of getting anything. But it is what it is. There's expectation there, but people just have to be patient. It's going to happen. You just got to wait it out. It took over 2 years when Hex was being built, from the moment of inception or idea. In fact, he had another coin that was going to launch before that, a CFTC coin or something
Yeah,
like
I've
that.
heard of this. Yeah,
That
yeah.
that didn't even happen. But from the inception of the idea of Hex, it was over 2 years. So and Hex isn't overly a hard contract. I mean, there are some intricate ideas in it, but a yield earning token with some um, compound interest in effect that can't be duplicated isn't overly hard. So
Mhm.
this is a much more delicate type of software. And yes, it is an Ethereum fork, but some of the parameters are changing. It just I just get irritated when I see all the FUD. I'm like, you would be a complete idiot if you think he's just going to run off with the money. It's not going to happen at this point.
So I wanted to ask you a couple specifics on the pulse chain stuff a bit later, but that's a good segue. Now we're going to continue to come back to some of this like hex stuff we're seeing on Twitter, and just there's just a lot to get to tonight with what's going on in the hex Richard Hart kind of ecosystem. But with Pulse, for example, maybe answer this with percentages. Like what percentage of you feels that there is really X amount of work that still needs done on Pulse Chain, even though, and I know Richard gave an example of what they're working on the other day, versus like totally timing the market right now. Like, how much serious work do you think really is needing done on Pulse Chain right now versus I want this released at the bottom of the market? Because I'm just a guy on YouTube, but it just seems to me that I think timing the market right now is what's really controlling this, and I applaud that. I think that makes total sense if that's what it is. But what are your thoughts, and what do you kind of maybe percentage wise put like the probabilities of those two things on like what's really happening?
Well, as you know, I haven't talked to Richard,
Yeah,
but it's going to really depend on where he feels the bottom may be. After his interview that he was on that last stream, where he said, he was talking about the pivot, and then the pivot could be
right.
6 to 8 months after that. I really hope that's not where he's thinking the bottom is going to fall. But I think that has something to do with it. I really do. I don't think at this point, where if there's more downside coming, you don't want to launch right now. It doesn't make sense. You want to have that chart looking good. And Hex didn't launch at the bottom either. It made a good, what was it, 32 or 33 days of all downward pressure
Mm,
before we reached a bottom there. So, it was a solid month of downtime. Now, you're not going to call it right away. And you're going to see that even if you do launch at the bottom, there's going to be people that are so anxious to get their tokens that they are going to sell. So you're going to have a price floor no matter where you launch it at. But you don't want the price to dip on top of the overall markets falling on top of that as well. It
Right.
just creates a pretty drastic drop. So it would kind of look like another chart that we know currently going down for a while. But anyway, I digress. I think there is some of that to it. But why not fix it? Why not tweak it to the best you can? If you are timing the market, why not do work and try and change a couple parameters that you may have wanted to put in? Had we bottomed already, I think you would have seen it. At least
Mhm.
the testnet version 3. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
but he's clearly not seeing a bottom anytime soon, I don't think. Um, eh, who knows? Maybe he'll wait for that bottom call to launch the test net and then go from there, and we can start some sort of rally at that point. I think it will be a catalyst for us anyway. Those involved with Hex, those involved with Pulse Chain, there's a lot of things being built on it that are kind of just waiting, and they're honestly considering launching it on Ethereum just to get a product out there at this point. I
Right.
don't think that's smart either. Their price chart is going to show a similar result as well. So I don't know. I definitely think that that is the majority of it is we're trying to time it more than it's just not done. Um, there's a couple other things that we have to think about too. The version 3 contract for Uniswap that allows
Mhm.
the single-sided stake or single-sided liquidity providing expires at the end of April, I believe,
Mhm.
which means you can't use that. So it's not open source until then. So why not wait till then to include that into the Pulse X platform, right? Why
Yeah.
not? Why would you want to do that twice? I think having a overall chart of liquidity is so much better than saying, all right, well, let me go to the V1 chart, let me go to the V2 chart, let me go to the
Right.
V3 chart. There's a lot of charts there. Why not keep it all under one umbrella? And do it all at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to have the same problem on Pulse X. You're going to have a V1 and a
Yeah.
V2 liquidity for that. So it makes sense to wait for that. I think they want the documentary to come out. Now they're slated in sometime in the first quarter, I believe,
Mm.
for that date. There's just a lot of things that are kind of playing in balance here that we've got to let them shake out. And the bottom of the market is definitely one of them.
Let me play devil's advocate here on the waiting for the Uniswap thing, waiting for the documentary. Because it already obviously, I don't think Richard purposely was waiting for like the merge, for example. But then, of course, once it happens, you might as well do what you need to do with ETH in its current state. But the saying goes whenever whatever some married couples try to have a baby or something like that, where it's like, well, it's just not a good time, and it's like, well, it's never a good time to have a baby. It's like, at what point um does the waiting for all these things to align end? You know what I mean? And I'm, again, just playing devil's advocate. I definitely see the merit in both things that you're saying, but at what point is it like we just got to get this thing out there? I think it makes sense, like you're saying. It would be good to just have one version of a liquidity chart after the Uniswap thing, but yeah, at what point is it just like we need to launch Pulse Chain?
Yeah, well, and this is another good point too. Johnny says, when Richard originally said it was mid-May, he never said what year. Um,
Yeah,
and because he likes to be right, he could have said, "Well, I always said mid-May. You just didn't listen. I didn't tell you what year it was."
yeah,
That
yeah.
would be pretty funny if it happened that way, and that would make sense too with that version 3 of Uniswap. It would kind of all play right into that whole timing. and would be funny. Richard likes to joke a
Wouldn't
lot,
be funny to everybody. Yeah, I agree with you that it's
well,
funny,
at
but a
this
lot of
point,
people are
what's
not laughing.
difference? At this point,
Yeah,
what's another 4 months?
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
5
yeah.
months. So
Yeah, so yeah, from what I have heard, and I think things are pretty concrete when it comes to like a documentary like that or a film being released. And yeah, I've been I don't even know. I just keep hearing it, I guess. So maybe it's hearsay, but yeah, I think it does sound like Q1 is when that is set to come out. So yeah, that'll be definitely interesting as well. But yeah, we'll see. As far as the Paul stuff, I didn't necessarily mean to get into that yet, but it was a good opportunity to do so. So
all right.
let me ask you this about where we're at with Hex right now, because this is, I think it was Crypto 7 who I've really enjoyed a lot of his streams lately. But something that he said the other day that I think is intriguing. There's a lot of people right now that are like the ones that are going to buy Hex to the bottom. I'm an OG no matter what. You know, it, it it's like it's okay certainly to wish for slightly lower prices to really load up and everything. But something Crypto 7 pointed out the other day that I agree with too, that people need to think about is, the lower that it goes, and this is true with a lot of assets, it's like, well, that also puts a bit of a cap on where we may go after recovery, so you don't want to lose like certain levels that become very, very hard to recover from. It's kind of like when we talk about Bitcoin, I've spoken a lot about not wanting it to really go below 10K for a long period of time or anything. I think that if we turn 10K into resistance, we could be looking at a lot longer time frame and a lot more blood, with Hex though, I mean, with anything, there's a certain rate where it's like you don't want to see it go that low because I don't know what the recovery is going to look like, and all these X's in the next bull run may just be imaginary X's. So, what are your thoughts on that? And we were talking about what you think the low will be a little bit ago. What do you think could be like the lowest of lows? I mean, do you think sub penny is likely? Let's just first off start, I guess, with the first question. Like, what do you think about the?
Well, I don't agree with the lower it goes, the harder it is to jump back. I think, especially with Hex, it hasn't gone viral yet. Everybody's pretty much heard of Bitcoin, right? It takes a lot of economic energy to move that price. Now, when it runs, it does run, but you've had a lot of institutions already buy. You've had a lot of that. With Hex, there's only maybe 300,000 or 400,000 wallets, maybe 500,000 if you count the dust sitting in some of those ones from the ZK rollups airdrop that was out there. But it doesn't take much to move it. Like we could see $1 in one candle with a, I don't know, $10 million buy, $15 million buy. It could go astronomical. People should be smart enough though not to buy against themselves, but spread it out a little bit. They don't want, you don't want to push the price against yourself too much. But again, I don't think going low, I don't even think sub penny at this point would hurt it from going to $1, $2 on the next run. I really don't. I've seen a lot of price calls being around the $5 range at the top of the next bear cycle. If it went to or bull cycle, if it went to a half a penny, and I believe $5 is that a 10,000x from the next cycle again. If I do the math correctly, I think a half a penny up to $5 is another 10,000x, which is completely possible. Yeah, and it's all perception, like Johnny said.
That would actually be 1,000x. That'd be 1,000.
Is it 1,000? So it would have to go to 50.
Still, that's crazy gains. Obviously.
It would have to go to $50 to be a 10,000x. So
yeah.
That could be pushing it a little bit, but again, Johnny said it here. Perception of value is absolutely a thing. It's all on the value that people put on it, and I really think right now you're getting you're getting dollars for 2 cents. It just I buy every day. I buy every day at 8:00. My stakes earn me more. And my stack gets bigger every day because I'm not selling them. I don't want to get rid of them. So yeah, there's my dollar cost averaging every day. So.
Right. That's what brings me back to this thing of like, if you are getting shaken out at this point, what is it that has changed? Like, what concrete thing? This is what I would want to ask some of the people that are just freaking out on Twitter. And I don't know if it's like the holidays helping this. I have a feeling that that could be some of it. And just that in general, in America, most people's mental health is dog shit. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah,
But,
we're a very rough time of year right now for a lot of people.
well, yeah, but I'm even talking on a multi-year level. I mean, like, yeah, I don't even just mean, I agree with you that this could be a tough time of year for some people, but I mean, like, just in general in America, there is a mental health like crisis for years on end now.
Yeah.
The social media, I think, helps fuel a little bit. But where was I going with this? Yeah, what material thing, like, that you can touch and examine has changed with Hex? Like, what has changed with your view of this product to make you get out of it at this point? To me, like, even though, yeah, I mean, I may be like, I might have a shred of, fear in me when I'm putting in buy orders right now. Not that I think it's going to go to zero, but that like it's going to drop another big leg down and I feel stupid for a little bit. That's basically it. But what material thing has changed? What, especially from something that's earning you yield in Hex for certain. Like, what has changed? That's what I don't get. Like, in your beliefs, is it? Do you think it's that there's? And you alluded to this a little bit earlier. Do you think it's that there's other products out there, like the shiny new object syndrome or whatever? What do you think it is? Because I don't see anything with Hex that has changed.
Well, I think for the people that are getting out of Hex, I think it's because they bought in at the top and they never dollar costed back in as the price went down. They didn't lower their cost basis. They just kind of said, "Oh shit, it's going, it's going, it's going," and they think it's going to continue to go. And now they're going to cut their losses at this point. Why they would do it now is beyond me.
Yeah,
At this point, $1,000 investment probably turned into, I don't know, 30 or 40
$100.
bucks maybe.
Yeah, less even. Yeah,
So you'd be kind of foolish at this point to unload it, um, unless you're going to buy back in. You know,
yeah,
I really don't know. Like I said, it's kind of weird at this point to give up but there's FUD out there, like I said, and the Christmas time and people's emotions are all over the place and pretty unstable. It is a hard time of year for people. You said, overall it's been that way, but I think even the holiday season, there's always people that are reaching points of, depression or anxiety or whatever, especially even more this time of year. So who knows what could have sent people to do it now at this point. I think it's silly myself. If you've held on for this long, you don't give up.
yeah.
Obviously, what more is it going to hurt if it does go down another penny or two?
Worst case scenario, write it off as a total loss and don't even
Yeah,
look at it anymore. That,
yeah.
just forget about it. Why sell it at this point? There's just, yeah,
And if anything, what I would do is take advantage of that, uh, sell what you have, buy it back, cash harvest it, and write it off on your taxes.
right.
If it was $1,000 and it's worth 40 now, you can write that off. Why not use it? Take advantage of it. Buy back in, get even a little bit more. You help yourself on your taxes. Talk to an accountant before you decide to do that. But the harvesting is not illegal in the United States as far as cryptocurrency goes right now. So
Right. Yeah.
could be a good option for you. But again, contact your accountant and talk to them first.
So another thing I wanted to ask you, just because I do sometimes watch like other Hex content creators throughout the week, and I just hear little nuggets that I think are pretty interesting. But I was listening to Crypto Coffee the other day, and this is just, I guess this isn't that important of a thing to answer, but I'm curious to have your thoughts, Ewok, as somebody who has been in Hex like since day one. Coffee was basically saying, look, even if you bought the top at this point, whenever you did get into crypto or more specifically Hex, like if you are still here right now experiencing this, holding it, DCAing or whatever, you have the credibility at this point of an OG,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you kind of feel that way as somebody who has been in from day one as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about your morals. It's all
Yeah,
about, if you're going to throw a bunch of FUD and things like that, you're not OG. But the people that really stand behind it and believe in what it is, Make a long stake. As far as I'm concerned, people that are in and staked for at least an average of over the 5 to 7 years,
Mhm.
um, and we're buying in during the bull run or during the bear market, whatever it was. Sure. I mean, anybody in a first cycle of anything is OG. I mean, look at the people that were in that first cycle of Bitcoin. Those
Yeah.
are true OGs now, that many years later. Any of them would be, and anybody would be lucky to be buying anywhere from $1 to $30 top, at that point.
Right.
So yeah, I don't I don't think they shouldn't be considered OGs. Anybody that has made it this far and still has investments, they've earned it for sure.
I think particularly what it is, like you said morals. The word I was thinking of was like yeah, whatever. I don't remember what it was, but like, yeah, like basically character and conviction and everything. If you are able to get through, like, this is really the important time, obviously. It's easy as hell. I mean, there's no challenge really in holding when the market's going up.
Well,
I mean, the
no, you
challenge
could
there is not selling. I mean, that,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
what's
could
tough.
throw throw it at a dartboard and then pick something during those times, and it wouldn't be uh, surprising to make a little bit of money. Yes, conviction is a better word, not morals, I guess. Um, yeah, that was a bad way to put it.
Well,
You
no, I get what you
don't.
mean though. You're really tested. Like it really shows your level of cojones
Yeah,
basically. Like if you're gonna
yeah.
stay in it down here at the bottom, then hey, you've got a good long-term outlook here. And you're gonna see on Twitter and the like people just calling you a bag holder and you're wrecked and you're an idiot and blah blah blah. But that's just why that stuff has to be tuned out. And that's been a thread throughout this episode, and I think it's an important one because we're going to continue to see it with Hex and other crypto stuff as well. What are your alternatives, Ewok? Because you said it, like you don't participate in the drama. I really don't either. Twitter's one of those things where like when I'm at my desk all day, a couple of days a week, it's a small distraction for a few minutes. Maybe I see like a funny Joe Biden video that distracts me for a couple minutes or something like that. But occasionally I'll see some kind of crypto FUD or something. But some people are really getting wrapped up in that stuff and they get in arguments and everything. So, what are some tips you have, especially at a time like this, for people that are in Hex and in another few weeks, it might be the people that are in Bitcoin and the rest of crypto here as well, when things really start to look badly. What are some of your tips for keeping yourself on a good mental plane and not going down those avenues, looking at something like Twitter, which is going to just trigger you and take you down someone else's entirely emotional journey?
Well, the mute button works really well. Honestly, there are people that I still want to follow, but I have to mute them sometimes because it just gets everything that comes out of their mouth is negative at this time of the cycle. So mute people. You don't have to necessarily unfollow or block or whatever. Um, don't be afraid to scroll right by. Like, I mean, I know sometimes you have to feel like you want to say something, uh, but honestly, no one usually cares what your opinion is anyway. Um,
Right.
Unless you're, one of the people that have like 50,000 followers, then you're going to get a little bit of following that way. But again, just scroll right by. The things, unless you can control, and I tell my kids this a lot, you can't stress about the things that you can't control. The
Hmm.
more you spend time worrying about things that are out of your control, uh, the less time you have to do good things and worry about the things you can control, which is yourself, and your friend group. So work on that, develop yourself better, get to that point where it doesn't bother you to scroll on by something without interjecting yourself on an opinion that probably no one really cares about anyway.
Right.
So it's just improve yourself. I think that's the best advice that you can get, especially this time of again, this time during the cycle, when there is a lot of people that are just out to poke or create FUD unnecessarily. Uh, it's not healthy to look at it. And again, if you can scroll on by, then sure, look at it. There is other good stuff out there. It's you got to weed through it though sometimes to find it. Uh, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's my advice.
And we've been saying this for a while, and I know some other people have too. But just you have to kind of wave the flag of like the bear markets are for building kind of thing. And
Mhm.
as much as it would be fun if prices were going up in crypto and everything right now, this is when you have to get other work done. This is when in IRL you're doing something, whether it is related to crypto or whatever, but you're trying to build something that can whatever make you some money on the side. If there is a career you're already in that you're passionate about, continuing to promote your way up that corporate ladder or whatever it may be. I mean, you have to be doing something in the meantime here, and ideally something that you're passionate about. I mean, that's we all, I think most of us in crypto, and especially people that would be watching or listening to this stream, are people that are hodlers mainly and are looking for some kind of self-sovereignty in this world, and you need to be working on something else in the meantime and not just kind of idly sitting by waiting for the market to come back, because we're in a little bit of, somewhat uncharted waters here as far as a macro basis. I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, we have our ideas and everything, but we don't know for sure. So I don't want to just be relying on the crypto market to come back.
Well, and that's another thing too, is a lot of people claim that they went full-time crypto. Um, that will cause a lot of stress too, right? Because you're
Hmm.
living off your bags that are dramatically less than what they used to be. Um, now's the time if you've got ideas to create a business, perfect it, try different advertising methods, and now's the time to work on it before the bull run starts.
Right.
So now be a good time to work on those things. So I just
Yeah.
going full-time crypto for people, I can see how they would get stressed out too. There was a lot of people I saw that were retiring and wanted to live it. And if they did take profits at the top and they still have some left, that's great. But I don't think a lot of people did that. So, they
Most
were,
people don't. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and especially with a product like Hex, is because you set up staking ladders so much a month that you think you could live on the interest or whatever the yield that you're getting from it. And that really took a pounding. So, most people didn't take a whole bunch of profits at the top because they had the ladder set up, which would have been a good strategy if the market continued to go up, but that's not always the case. So now we know,
Right.
and we can adjust for the next cycle, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think to the point that you just said, Ewok, about people that decided to go full time crypto or retire or whatever, I think in general, um, I would think anybody with a kind of a sound way of thinking would come to this conclusion, but it's probably best just to wait one extra cycle, and I know that can seem like a long time, but no matter what, it's probably best just to wait one more time. And then, over the course of that, maybe you can like slowly scale your life back or take on less responsibilities at your day job or transition to something a little bit more cushy and less worky, whatever it is. But
Sure.
yeah, to make a gigantic decision like that, to just totally turn toward, it's like with me, I used to be like heavily involved in sports betting and everything. And there's some people who their career that they claim on their taxes is like pro sports better. And that, you've got to be in a very good financial place to be able to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, you sure do.
So, yeah, this
or
has been a
or
good
or
conversation.
or take some of that and get yourself a yield producing um
Mhm,
asset that doesn't require crypto, that doesn't require cycles like that. I mean,
mhm,
real estate is always another option, whereas if you can generate some yield on a 3 or 4 unit building, and you don't even always have to have them all full. Sometimes it's just icing on the cake if you do. But buying one house and renting it, a lot of times when you're first starting out, it's tough because you're, paying for repairs and taxes, and you've got the mortgage payment on top of that. You usually aren't making enough. You have to kind of scale up and scale in. Whereas
mhm,
if you can get yourself a several unit home, or even do an Airbnb with a couple different places, something like that.
mhm.
Um, there is Airbnb arbitrage as well. I've heard people talk about this is, they'll rent places they'll rent a place and then they'll turn around and Airbnb it.
Yeah.
So, there's that. That's kind of risky to do that because if you're not filling it up, you still have that rent to pay. But, um, there are other options out there for people that could be hurting, that don't want to take on a job right now. But, you always got to find some ways to generate income that's not crypto based.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever your skills are. And what I have found through life, and I think you've probably found this too, Ewok, is just like, you have to do something that you're going to enjoy. There's a lot of people, like, I know it was a meme a few years ago that's just like, hey, learn to code or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's like, that, yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I'm not saying that people should not pursue learning a new skill, even if it's not something they particularly love. But the problem is that can be a paradox sometime where it's like, if you don't love it, it's probably not going to pan out for you, even if you
Right.
do learn the skill. You're
Yeah.
just, for whatever it may be, like your subconscious is coming out. You don't actually pursue a job that you may be qualified for, or you purposely get yourself fired or what. I don't know. Like, I mean, you're just not really going to be able to manifest that to the greatest extent because you really don't care about it.
Right. Yeah. Finding something that you love and to do for work is tough, because a lot of times you do it because it's something you enjoy, not because you're something you have to do. And those sometimes will turn into a no longer loving it. You end up hating it because now you
Right.
have to do it. It's not something that you do on the side. So finding that
Exactly.
happy medium is oftentimes, kind of tough. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. The only other thing that I had tonight, you can feel free to ignore this part, Ewok, if you want to, but I am intrigued with Jack Levin's Zen, what he is doing right now. It looks like he has Zen NFTs coming out, and I know a little bit about them. I'm not going to get into them very much. We've loosely talked about Zen back when it launched in early October on this show. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but it's essentially another DeFi protocol that is super inflationary right now, which has obviously seen the price plummet basically since it did launch. If you would go to pull up that chart, that's Zen XEN. I know some people don't like people who talk about things that are unrelated to hex or anything like that, but I'm my own man. So I am interested though in what Jack Levin is doing. I don't know what is going to ultimately happen with Zen, but I do know that there's some um, basically computations within these NFTs that do kind of give them an economical engine, and people are interested in buying them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm not going to be doing that. And there's not many people that can even afford, I think, some of the NFTs that are out, but it is going to involve the burning of many, many tokens. And we've seen the Zen price go through the roof over the last couple of days. I think it's up like 50 or 60% over the last couple of days, just based on the news here. And I think they come out on Friday the 30th. But I remain a halfway, I guess you'd say, skeptic, halfway intrigued in what's happening with Zen. And I like to kind of toe that line and not take any kind of a hardened stance one way or the other, because I think I really think that can be the most ignorant that you can get with any decision in life, to just, assume something and go that route. So I'm intrigued by it. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on it. Obviously, you don't have to spend very much money to mint Zen right now, but certainly if you're interested in it, I should give anybody that is interested in it a channel that I do love, that I think is doing a great job, and that's 333 Crypto. His videos on it have been really, really cool. He's been kind of a DeFi geek for a few years and has some great videos dating back to when Polkadot first launched and all kinds of stuff. He has some cool stuff there. But I'm intrigued by it. They have a little Zen Turbo app that I sent you earlier this week, Ewok, that
Mhm.
a little reminiscent of like the Staker app, I think. Um,
Yeah, it looks
but
pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah, I'm intrigued by it. I mean, I don't know what we're going to see out of Zen over this kind of 8-year minting horizon. I do know it's going to get more deflationary, but we shall see. Obviously, no financial advice, kind of just education. But anybody that would like to go out and learn more, certainly do so. I have a couple of videos on my channel about it, and another one with my kind of degen strategy that I've been approaching with Zen here, coming out here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, it's nothing that's like any kind of real part of my portfolio. I just kind of remain an interested party, I guess, and see
Well,
where it goes. So
and I think one of the things that I had mentioned to you when it first came out was, they're going to have to figure out a way to get people to lock it up for some sort of time
hmm
with penalty if they want to kind of diminish that sell pressure. So that's all I
yeah,
really had to add. And, maybe the NFTs could do something. Richard Hart's not a fan of NFTs either. For that reason, they get a little overpriced. And
definitely.
do they really exist? Are you paying for a serial number loosely related to a JPEG that may or may not even exist anymore, kind of thing?
hmm
Um, and when we still haven't seen, we are seeing it now. The price of NFTs are definitely coming down, and that was
Right.
one of the signs of the market bottom, is when these things are not $1 million anymore and they're pretty much worthless. So that's
Right.
another thing to keep an eye out for. If people are selling these other ones for a high value, be very careful.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, you mentioned like the locking up and the staking with Zen. I do think that's going to be interesting because as we discussed before, it's not like Hex where you can lock it up for that 5,555. It only the max staking term only goes up to like 1,000 days, and the yield is not going to be anywhere near 38% or even 30% either. By the time I think most people are staking, you're probably looking at more like 17% or less. Not that that's anything to sneeze at either, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm with you though. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how that model works. I mean, I am a fan of DeFi, so I mean, anybody doing something there that has good intentions and knows how to create a good product, I'm at least going to take a look at anyway. But
sure. And to
this,
answer Andrew's
okay,
question, I don't believe we have hit 100 days. I believe it was
oh, for Zen,
October 8th is when. So
yeah.
whatever 100 days is after that, you're probably looking at February sometime.
No, it'd
After
only
that.
be like a week. It would only be well, the 100 days, 90 days would be about a week from now. So yeah, like mid-January, that
Okay.
would probably be about it. So yeah, yeah, I think you had a couple 100-day mints or something,
Yeah,
didn't
I
you?
think I minted a couple at 100. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that'll be coming up.
Probably ought
But I
to
mean,
probably
go
ought
ahead.
to check.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I've been telling you, I was watching Trevon, and he already like admitted that he's just had a whole bunch just fall by the wayside and stuff like that. And that's the thing, a lot of people are doing those like short term ones. I mean, there's been people that are doing short term mints and just profiting hundreds of dollars this whole time, like since
Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
Which nothing wrong with that, obviously, even if you're taking it out and just putting it into USDC or whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're able to convert some money in the meantime and take some profit for it, by all
mhm.
means, have at it. I wouldn't see what would be wrong with that. Make a little money.
Especially with right now, I mean, Gwei has been spectacular. Now today,
Yeah.
a couple blips during the day, but man, I think it was the day after Christmas, the 26th. I was on the ETH network all day long, and I was paying sub $3 for like
Yeah.
every single transaction. Gwei was
Yeah.
like 9 to 13.
Yeah. It's
It's
15 or
fantastic.
16 right now. So
Yeah, yeah, a little bit higher, but yeah, it's been pretty solid this week with everybody kind of holidaying. So
yeah.
um, I think that's pretty much all we had. This is a very eventful episode, and as much as I hate to say it, or maybe like to say it, Ewok, I think we're going to have a couple of these coming up here for the next 4, 8, 12 weeks. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
there are going to be chances for more kind of drama filled. When is it going to stop dropping? I think we're going to have that, and that's why, like, I put in a buy. I bought Hex 2 different occasions yesterday, and then I bought it again today. Um, and yeah, like you said earlier in the show, it's kind of just that, like, what do you do when these things are happening and it feels like the sky is falling and everything?
Yeah.
And again, I even said myself, like, there was a twinge of fear when I bought. Again, not because I don't believe in Hex, but because I don't want to be like catching the falling knife
Sure.
necessarily. But you know,
And you did mention to me that you're not a big fan of the limit orders, but
yeah, just my
um
own problem. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's still a good way to set things at different levels, and hopefully you catch them. A
hmm
lot of times, unless you're really sitting there watching, especially with a decentralized exchange like Uniswap or Matcha or anything like that, it's tough to catch them.
It is.
These
Yeah.
big dips unless you have a limit order set. So keep that in mind and use that as an option if you want to, if you want to try and take a chance at some lower levels, go for it. Set them for seven. I think you can set them for 7 days where they expire and they're no longer active. If you do set a limit order and decide to pull it, it does cost you a little bit of gas to end it. So keep that in mind, that
Right.
you want to set it for what you're willing to wait. So
Yeah, you can get tricked a little bit on Uniswap if you're just spot buying live because you're sitting there with a gas fee and it's kind of retotaling like the amount of whatever the token is you're going to purchase. And then next thing you know, you think you got this price and you got it a little bit higher. But hey, in the
yeah,
long run, not really that big a deal. So,
yeah. Again, I still feel like we are exchanging cents for dollars at this point.
yeah.
As long as you have that couple year time frame, I think you're going to be fine.
And that's the key. Yeah. I hope that I know some people said this to us about last week's episode, and I hope this week people will find some of this conversation, a little bit calming if they are feeling like they're hitting the panic button a little bit. And just two guys. Sometimes I think there's value to just kind of hashing things out and stepping back a little bit, examining how you feel. I talk about on my channel a lot. Like I like to audio journal. It helps me about any kind of stresses in life, like put things in a certain perspective. And sometimes like when all that crap is up in your head, whether you're talking about like the price of Hex or whatever it is, your kid's sick, you need to get that stuff out of your head and hear it, and when you do that, you can kind of look at it like a different person instead of it just attacking your own mind, because you can't think your way out of that stuff. That's been
Right.
my experience anyway. You can't, you try to go down like all these different avenues of figuring out like, I'm going to feel better if I maybe I just look at it this way. For me, it's like, once I hear myself saying it, I can become kind of like a friend to myself, hear it. And I'm like, you're not, dude, that's ridiculous. That's just a strategy I use.
Good
Anyway,
advice.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Ewok, remind everybody where they can find you and what else you may have going on.
Crypto Ewok on Twitter and YouTube. We stream this on both Broke Boy Crypto and Crypto Ewok on YouTube. So we would appreciate the the subscribes, tick the bell, all that good stuff. I know we're both building. You've got a nice little following going. I saw you're up 700, 800 followers.
Yeah, that's where
on your side. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
No, I appreciate that. We're trying here and just trying to continue to, it's one thing. I was having a conversation with somebody about this today. It's not just like people talk like a lot about the word content and just producing content, which I think always sounds kind of like a hollow way of when you hear content, it's like, I'm just pushing some garbage out there. Hopefully everybody can get up. But, actual retention, though, I mean, it's one thing to have like clickbaity thumbnails. We all do that because,
Sure.
hey, that's how you get people to click on stuff, just
Yeah,
the way
that's
it
right.
is. Sorry, but you retain people by actually talking about real shit.
Well,
like
yeah,
we are, I
stuff
think,
they,
here tonight.
yeah, I think so. I mean, you talk about the things they want to hear about. Let them comment their opinions, and a lot of times we discuss it. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just pushing stuff out there just to get clicks and views. Although being consistent is one of the things that definitely helps. I know I see you. You probably pre-record some things and push them out throughout the week, which is good.
Right.
You always have new stuff coming out, which is that's awesome.
Yeah, just try to stay on top of things and kind of have tunnel vision on crypto right now. So
Yeah.
again, I do hope that if you are stressed out, we were able to provide you a little bit of an anti-stressor tonight. We will be back in the new year, 2023. We are on the precipice. Enjoy the college football. I know that's what I'll be doing over the next week or so. Probably you as well, Ewok. And yeah, we will see you guys next Wednesday. I guess that'll be January 4th. Yes, January the 4th.
January 4th.
Yep, first show of 2023 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the U.S. So until then, this has been Broke Boy Crypto and Crypto Ewok. We will catch you next Wednesday right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast.